You're listening to the Nil-Niller Show. My name's Joey, and I'm joined by Paul.
All right, mate.
And Neil.
Hello.
Goals very much overrated. So let's focus on not moments of the week, but Matt Godden chat of the week. Neil, thoughts on Matt Godden, please? No,
I will be taking the fifth on any Matt Godden related questions this week.
Yeah, we quite rightly got a lot of correspondence this week suggesting that perhaps we didn't need to talk about him anymore. The irony, of course, is that his name will probably come up quite a lot in the description of the games, but it will be with severe trepidation. So let's actually start with moments of the week. Paul, why don't you start us off?
I don't know if you've ever been to Fleetwood football ground, but it's quite exposed, and the away end is basically a glorified bus shelter. But what they do have is like quite a nice little room which they call the toilets. And yesterday there were a couple of COD fans like myself who, to get away from the cold, just went and stood in the toilets for about a couple of minutes at half time just to warm the feet and warm the hands before going back out and freezing to death. So my moment of the week is my little jaunt to the toilet at half time. I didn't even use the facilities. I literally just stood in there looking at Twitter and warming my hands. It was glorious.
What's the coldest game you've ever been to?
Well, that's very easy. Grimsby away in 2001, or Boxing Day 2001, where it was about -6. And we were all freezing our bits and pieces off, apart from Pritchard, who was stood there in Oggie's coat, because someone he knew had stolen the Oggie's coat and lent it to Pritchard for the day.
What? That's a man of a lot of layers anyway, at the best of times, isn't it?
This was before the times where you properly layered up, but it was literally -4 or 5, and Grimsby isn't in Grimsby, is it? It's in Cleethorpes, so it's right next to the sea, and it was Baltic, absolutely Baltic. Well, I think it was getting to the point where it would have been called off just because the pitch was so frozen. It was so cold.
I think those sort of games are kind of they're worse, the windy ones. Because I remember when it was getting like down to a -11, -13 the other year, and we had a match. I think it was in the JPT or something. And I went to that, and it's cold. But to be honest, -4 in the cold is the same as -10. It's fucking freezing. But if you add the wind to it, that just makes it a whole lot worse. So fair play to you.
Yesterday, apparently, it was only about 5 or 6 degrees, but it was the wind which was just absolutely biting. To be fair to most of the players, they were wearing short sleeves. There wasn't a pair of gloves in sight. You know, proper sort of men out on the pitch.
That's Mark's doing, that is.
Well, to be fair, Fleetwood were the same. You know, there were 2 bunches of men on the pitch, if that doesn't sound a little bit camp.
I liked, Neil, you suggested that they should have been allowed to play in coats.
Did I do that publicly? I can't remember. I didn't know. That's very much for your benefit.
I was indeed, yeah. Neil, what's the coldest place you've been to, can you think? Was it that JPT one?
It was that game, so it was cold, but the wind, if it had been windy that day, I would have expired.
I remember we had York away in the JPT in the first season of League One, I think. And it was the first time I'd used Apple Maps, and it was around about the time that there was all those stories about people being like driving into the sea, effectively, because Apple Maps had told them the wrong way to go. And yet, foolishly, I used it anyway, and then I went on a big, long, circuitous walk that took me into the middle of a housing estate. And then, so I had a big, long walk in the cold anyway, and I was terribly ill-prepared. And then when I got there, it's just an open terrace, isn't it? It just was, we won 4-0, but I've never seen so many people look so miserable during a 4-0 win. It was really, really, really cold.
Have you boys, not to carry on this chat too much, but Bradford away, I hear really bad things about that stand. Have you done that?
I've done Bradford away again, I think on Boxing on December the 28th, and it's sort of quite exposed. Bradford away. It's not warm. It's in the same way. If you've ever been to Stoke away, I've been to Stoke away in May and still been cold. Yeah. Because you're just on the top of a hill in an exposed. Yeah. It's like there's no wind anywhere apart from in this one corner of Stoke where this wind's blushing through. But yeah, no, Bradford isn't. Bradford's. Have we ever seen? I don't think I've ever seen us win at Bradford, or very few. We tend to lose when I go to Bradford, and it tends to be like Christmas or middle of February on a Tuesday night. Just not a nice. We never seem to play there in sort of the nice season, whenever that is in Bradford.
Neil, your moment of the week.
Moment of the week is just Liam Walsh. I think his step up. Yeah, it's that step up that he's done this week. There was something. We've always known he's a handy player, but I'll talk about it in a bit. But the Birmingham performance, where I think he, out of nowhere, decided I'm the best player on the pitch, and then started backing up by being the best player on the pitch, which was amazing. And then I think he continued it last night in a similar vein. At least from the confidence perspective, he seemed to be willing to step up. I don't think the conditions allowed him to play quite as well as he did against Birmingham, but yeah, I think that was very telling. And I had this sort of thought earlier where I was thinking, if you asked our own players who our best player would be, my mic, I reckon a lot of them, even before that, will probably say Liam Walsh. I don't really know what my basis of that, other than I just think, I bet in training he's epic.
Well, I imagine Mark Robbins would say Sam McCallum, but we've talked about that. When I first saw him, I liked him because I like that sort of player more than anything. And then after a few weeks, you went, you could be really good, but you make some very odd decisions and you give the ball away in a very strange way quite a lot. And then what's happened in the last 3 or 4 weeks is he just seems to have cut all of the silly stuff out.
Yeah.
I don't think he has.
Well, it's different type of silly stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. I think that's.
And then I don't think there's the wild mistakes that he used to make. The
10-yard passes directly to an opposition player from the edge of his own box is what I've sort of not seen any much more of.
No, I think he's sort of, especially the first 15 minutes yesterday, you really noticed he was almost sort of high on his own confidence, and he kept doing he made a really big mistake by the edge of our own area by sort of letting the ball go past him in a sort of, I'll just let I'm a really good midfielder. Really good midfielders let the ball go past them at times and then get the ball the other side. And you were like, you are really good. There's no one's denying you're really good. What you don't have to do at this moment in time is really show us how good you are. Just take your time into the game. And in the second half, it's a bit different. We move forward. He had a really good game. In the first half, he was trying too hard to sort of really show how good he was. And that's I've got criticism of Walsh at the moment. Sometimes you don't have to play that 70-yard Uber pass. You don't have to try and break the opposition down with the most magnificent ball you can play. Just take your time. And when he takes his time, and I think the system really helps him, having Westbrook around him and Dabo around him, and that sort of system really helps. And I think he is possibly our best player at the moment. It's just sometimes you just calm down. You'll get your chance to show how good you are. Just build yourself into the game. But I think that's where he is at the moment is really strong position for sort of going forward. Whether or not he'll get into the Bristol City team is really difficult to say. But he just needs to just sometimes just take your time, take a touch. You'll get the chances to show how good you are. Just do the basics, and then you'll fly. And on Saturday, he was clearly our best player. In fact, he was probably the best player on the pitch.
I'm going to go for. I had it then, and now it's gone. Oh, a seven-figure bid for Sam McCallum turned down.
Interesting. Expected, but yeah. What could that be? I mean, that's $1 million, or is it 9? Probably $1 million.
Probably $1 million, isn't it? But the turned down. Brandon Mason must be fuming.
Well, yeah, they really don't want him to leave, do they? Oh, it must be bluster. I mean, I feel like he's going to go, isn't he? I mean, they'll come in with a slightly improved bid. We'll accept it. He'll be off.
He'll be off at 5 to midnight on Friday, won't he?
You'd have thought
or
so.
Or whatever,
yeah.
5 minutes before the deadline. Then, unfortunately, we can't reinvest this money. Oh dear, we'll have to pay off some of the debt we have instead.
But I just think he's been really good recently, hasn't he? But you get the impression that Brandon Mason will come back in and you just go, that's fine.
You'd hope so, wouldn't you? I think he's adequate. Adequate, that's a bad thing to say. He's a good defender.
He was literally our best player until he was...
Yeah. Until he was saying? It's too late, man.
I do think McCallum's better at wing back than... I think Mason's a better fullback. I'm not overly sold on Mason in the wing back role. Not that he's played it as much as McCallum, but he's not as offensive. The balance, the nice balance between McCallum and Dabo on the other side it works. Mason is definitely more defensive, so you'd need that offensive sort of that side from someone else. But full credit to the guy. I mean, again, he's one of the players who's had a sort of good week. So, I mean, the other issue I had yesterday was obviously always happening this time of year. Bakayoko wasn't in the squad. Where's he getting sold to? I mean, that's a concern.
It could be anywhere, couldn't it?
I mean, Premier League's probably sniffing around him because we got the chance to.
How much of a worse option would he be than Islam Slimani and Odion Igalo for Man United?
I have no idea who the hell you just talked about.
Are they Leicester players?
Yeah, have you not seen well, this is a different podcast, isn't it? But they're the two players that they've been linked with to solve their striking woes. The fella that Leicester bought for 30 million, then had to just tell him to leave immediately.
Oh, the guy in Europe. The guy, is he now in France somewhere? Or
I think so, yeah. I think he's on loan somewhere. And then the Nigerian fellow who scored about 15 goals for Watford in half a season and then went to China.
Hang on.
Anyway, right. Which one came first? Birmingham. Neil, get us started.
Birmingham. Yeah, went to this one. The situation, the circumstances around the game were obviously all very strange. I think what struck me was kind of the mindset before we talk about the football, was kind of the mindset of all of the fans on that day. It was very much like, right, we're all going to be away fans today. So there was a lot of tension, a lot of coppers going around, quite a kind of angsty sort of approach to the day, which you kind of felt as you're kind of walking up to the ground. Lots of police presence. Didn't personally see anything, but here stuff went on, which and no good. But I mean, so the circumstances around the game were all very strange, but then you get in there and it's full, and people seemed really sort of pumped up for the day. I mean, it was a weird old scenario when you've got half the stadium is us and another half is them lot. But it was really good to see kind of a packed house again to watch the Cov match, and I think everybody was really looking forward to it. And as you started the game, I found it a really interesting game, but also for me personally, really useful game to watch and kind of try and gauge where we currently sit as a team. So this season we played a few sort of higher opposition, mainly their youth team. And the one that stands out for me is kind of Watford when we played them in the League Cup, and we played a fairly strong team, and they played their reserve team, but they were just so strong, like athletes, proper strong people. And you sort of think, okay, maybe that's the difference. And as we started the game at the weekend against Birmingham, you looked at some of their players and they were physically far bigger than us. The one that struck me was Jukovic, who, since he's left us, remains the same height. That ain't going to change, but he's looks far... Bulky's the wrong word because he's still an athlete, but he looks a lot stronger. And within those first 5 minutes, he was winning a few balls in the air. He looked like he was going to be a big threat, and we weren't quite sure how to deal with him. But as those sort of few opening sort of period moved on, I thought it was always going to be difficult for us to kind of match them. When I looked at the players, sort of pound for pound, match them for strength. But the other things that you can deal with in terms of kind of sort of quality on the ball and desire and all that sort of stuff that you need in those FA Cup games, I thought we figured it out pretty quickly, and it was a fairly even first half. But what I really enjoyed was just it not being, it's going to sound terrible, but an easy League One game, because we played so many teams this year who are dreadful, and I keep saying that we're better than them, and they're kind of easy, and we're not beating them all because we're just sometimes we're a little bit flippant about the occasion, but it's an easy match. They're not really coming at us. But whereas Birmingham, as much as their fans will have a go at them because they thought they should be hammering us as a League One team, I thought as a test for us against kind of what a Championship team's performance would be like, I thought we stepped up and we showed a real good amount of quality against them, and that was really pleasing. Kind of what I quite like about St Andrews is being that close to the pitch, so you can, or in my position I could see a lot of the detail a lot more. I thought defensively, I really like that shape. I think we looked pretty decent. McFadzean is kind of really stepping into that central role a lot. McCallum had a really good game on the left hand side. I think he just proved what a real talent he is, with the kind of the quality on the ball and just the basics, which are basic, but you don't have to worry about those with him. He just gets on with them, actually causing them issues down the left hand side. Just let me check the timings on the match and what actually happened. We didn't score any goals, so I'm trying to find something of real interest. I just think it was even first half. We were struggling to kind of create anything in the attacking areas. I think that was probably one of the problems with the match, was just while I think up to a point we were dominant and we were kind of able to control it up front and around them, we just didn't have on that day kind of the players or the kind of the dynamic to really affect it as much as you'd like. So I think where certain players were comfortable with the pace of the game, so Liam Walsh, you've already mentioned, I thought he was perfectly at ease at how things were going, and he was trying to make things happen as you moved forward up into the sort of the upper areas of the pitch. You had Shipley, who seemed really eager to impress, but ultimately was struggling really with the pace of the game or getting the ball under control and doing those things that you'd expect from him. Same sort of goes for Westbrook in that first half, where those two we've kind of praised their ability in that kind of that role behind Godden, but they weren't really able to get into the match. The shape just wasn't there for them. And similarly, I thought Godden, he doing that job up front against two really, really big guys, he wasn't really going to win much in the air. He ran around a lot. He made it difficult for them, so he made them think about it. But in terms of like an actual goal scoring threat, I can't remember too much going on in those opening 45. There's some decent interplay, but we couldn't quite create anything. Then as you moved into the second half, I think it was looking like it was going to be a similar story, and we were gradually growing into the match. I think we were oddly controlling it. It was up to us to how we wanted to define how the match was going to go. But we still weren't really crafting too much. There were sort of signs that we could get in behind, and I thought Westport was moving into the match a lot more second half. He started to get his bearings, and Dabo down the right became more of the threat than McCallum on the left. But we still didn't quite have the right connection up front. And it was sort of later on in the half, 70 minutes maybe, where basically Biamu came on. I think O'Hare came on at the same time, and it just shifted their mindset a little bit. So we went two up front. You put O'Hare behind them just to kind of do the thing that we spoke about in the previous podcast, where he's just dropping into the gaps, trying to get his foot on the ball and just causing them more concern. But really the change there was Biamu coming on, who it's so strange to think that we got him from non-league, because it seems that every time we play him, or whatever level, whatever the opposition, we kind of, it's such a broad statement. I don't mean it to be this broad, but he has shown against varying levels of opposition that he's quite capable of playing against them. And he came on the pitch against a Championship club the other day, and he caused them a whole lot of grief. And he almost scored. We put the ball through for him. He was kind of he tried to curl it with his right, didn't quite send it out further enough. It actually looked an easier chance from where I was behind the goal than it actually was in reality. He was relatively far out, but he was still able to get the ball under control and give it a decent effort. And then that's kind of, I think, coming in the final sort of 20, it was really all about us. I thought Liam Walsh was just having the time of his life out there. He did this awesome, it was really late on, but he did this awesome sort of kind of turn and touch at the same time. We were joking about someone else doing a Zidane kind of touch the other day, but this was almost very much like mid-air Cruyff back into his play. You sort of think, okay, yeah, this is your day. You're really loving this, aren't you? And he was kind of the heart of everything. I thought it was a superb performance from him. And just to wrap it up, obviously, the talk after the match was all about how did we not win, because Mr. O'Hare, all written for that guy, Villa player, to come on and score the goal in the last minute to win it. And there is absolutely no reason why he should have missed that chance, and yet he did. So, I would like to just put it down to experience, but then someone showed me another chance of him missing on the line earlier this season. I can't remember who it was against now, but you sort of think, can't keep missing on the line. So He'll be gutted about it. We're all gutted about it because we've now got to play them again, and with a good-looking replay on the cards against Leicester. But yeah, we should have won that match, and I was ultimately pleased with our performance against a Championship team. They were not happy. When you look at what they've got to say, I mean, some of it you don't know if it's just sort of big team bluster, and they were just, we should have smashed them, all that sort of stuff. But I think genuinely, I thought we gave a really good account of ourselves, and nobody could have complained. Even the national press, who seemed to position us as this kind of battling performance, it's like, well, we did battle, but also we were better than them. So give us some credit, please. Yeah, that's my assessment.
Beautiful. Paul, any thoughts on that before we move on to Fleetwood?
Against Fleetwood, we put in a cross. Someone at the near post missed it, and it hit Callum O'Hare on the side, and then trickled to the goalkeeper's hands. And you were like, why don't you do that on Saturday?
Yeah, that's the old trickle.
The ball, you didn't have to touch, or you didn't have to put any thought behind it. The ball just had to hit you and go in. And I think you'd been a bit disparaging because obviously Bakayoko's header across goal was perfect.
Oh, here he said, just agent.
Whichever way you look at it, I mean, it was perfect. You watch it, because when we first saw it, I thought, he's missed a header at goal. And you watch it again, you're like, he probably couldn't have scored from the angle he was at. He's headed it straight to the player who's 2 yards out. He's done everything right there. And it was one of the only times, and this is the big issue we've got, is one of the only times we had 3 players in the box for a cross. And
whose fault would you say that is?
I think it's the players' fault. Maybe it is Robin's fault for not giving them instructions to get in the box. But it's definitely an issue that we don't get players into the box. It's an ongoing issue. It's been an ongoing issue for a while now. But that was one of the first times we actually had. If the person who, like most of the time, if the ball's into the box, the person who, Bakayoko, doesn't have someone to head that to. So it was nice to see O'Hare get into the box. And I sort of agree that him and Biamu. I mean, the thing about Biamu is he gives us a focal point. He's just, he can take the ball in every situation and come out of it with holding the ball. And up to that point, up until he came on, I agree the front three weren't particularly good. I think the issue with the front three there was no one to, there was no focal. There was no actual player who was trying to get onto the ball and bring teammates into the game and actually use their position to actually bring the whole team forward. And Biamu does that so well. He's a platform to build off. Other than that, I think you're right. I think the defence and midfield played really well. Kelly's probably not got the plaudits he deserves. Again, he just does his role so well. He's just quite understated. He probably didn't have his best 45 minutes in the first half, but he's so critical to the way we play.
No, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. I thought he was one of those players who he wanted to play his League One game, and he didn't quite adjust early on to the fact that we weren't playing a League One side. We were playing a team that was more intense than that. But yeah, I think second half he definitely came into his own as well.
I think it's just easier again when you've got someone up, when you're more offensive. It's easier for players like him. And if I had any sort of, I do think we probably hit a Birmingham. I think you watch Birmingham's whole. They weren't. I think we can easily beat them in the replay as long as we score that elusive goal. They don't look like a team who particularly want to be out there at the moment. They don't look like the fans' dissent when they made the substitutions after about 85 minutes, where even as a Cov fan you were like, why haven't they, like, this? What they're doing isn't working. Like, we're playing far better than them. I think Birmingham City isn't a happy place to be. I think they've still got potential 10-point deduction hanging over their heads as well, due to sort of financial misdeeds. So I think they're definitely not a club in a healthy position. I think they're definitely a team that we should be looking at to have a proper go at in the replay. I think that they're definitely there for the taking. But yeah, I think, as you say, like, Walsh's career, I think, will be quite an interesting to see one where he goes. As I said, I think he's clearly too good for League One, but I think he's very much in the same way that sort of John Flecker's really sort of grown as a player, and we always knew that he had an issue where you weren't going to trust him in the midfield too, but he really strengthened in the midfield three. You watch with Walsh and you're like, I think you really need options around you, and not being the defensive player, having Kelly there. So you can do some defensive stuff, but your main job is to be like a deep line playmaker. Be interesting to see sort of how his career develops and how people can get the best out of him. And then, if you want to go on to the Fleetwood game, it was cold. It was cold. We drew. They're
Is that really it?
That, I mean,
you brought that on yourself, Joey. That was your doing.
But no, I mean, it's in nothing really happened. Paddy Madden had two really good chances. One in the first half, he tried to head her in from 15 yards when it was at a level he probably could have volleyed it. In the second half, he had a volley from about 15 yards that he spooned over the bar. And then Ched Evans had his usual couple of chances because Ched Evans is clearly too good for League One. And it must be really weird for Ched Evans because he's clearly too good for most of his teammates. So he's just stood there going, like, the ball's coming out the air. I can take this down, but I need someone to run off me. And his teammates are like, what do we do now? You're shit. So, but they did what a lot of teams do against us. They defended pretty solidly. They prevented our fullbacks getting forward. I mean, if there's one criticism of the fullbacks, and as I said earlier, it's sort of whether or not you blame them or you blame the system, but they don't create many chances. But is that because they're putting in good balls that there aren't enough players in the box for? Or they putting in bad balls that even if there were players in the box, they wouldn't be getting on the end of? It's a bit like chicken and egg situation. Chippers had an awful first half, and he felt sorry for him.
I counted, sorry, just not to be mean, but at one point he gave the ball away 10 times in a row. It became a bit of a game. And he's like, God, he's having the worst game of his life.
It was one of those ones where every time the ball came to him, if he was under pressure, his control let him down. If he had time, he'd get the ball under control and then just pass it to the opposition. And the problem is, that's fine if Westbrook's having a good game, but Westbrook was poor. We should be fine if Godden was having a good game, but Godden wasn't really involved.
I'm not sure it's fine at all, is it, really?
No, it's like, so when your whole front three are playing poorly,
yeah.
You just stood there going, well, and again, it's a bit, that Fleetwood had the big tall guy at the back, and it's like, well, how are we ever going to score? Look at that man, he's 6'6". Like, Fleetwood haven't kept 40 clean sheets in every game he's played. There are ways to score goals against this guy. It's just lumping the ball at his head isn't plan A. It's just not. That's not how you're going to score against this guy. And even when Biamu came on, and Biamu's good in the air, he still won everything in the air. And you were like, you've got to work this out. Yeah. This is something we've got to do. Because we've got 7 of the top 9 to come to St Andrews. And those games are going to be tight. They're going to be, because teams are going to come and they're going to try and get a draw against us. They're not going to come out and try and hammer us. So those 7 games are going to be tight. So we're going to have to learn and work out a way to create chances. Even if we don't score every chance, create chances. Yesterday, we didn't create, barely a chance. Like, Biamu had a header, I think. Or was it O'Hare had a header that Biamu tried to get on the end of when the keeper saved it. Other than that, we didn't even have our usual long-range shots. It was just a bit boring. And not boring because we're a bad team. Like, we've seen us be boring because we're shit. It was boring because we're toothless. And
are we toothless? I mean, one thing that Robin said about yesterday, I want to get your thoughts on this, Paul, is he slagged off the weather a lot. I mean, how much did that... Obviously, it was a rubbish game for many reasons, but how much did the weather just cause havoc with the way that we played? Because he said it was terrible conditions, and I think we always have to consider it. It did look rotten.
Yeah, it did, and it probably was rotten, but I'm not sure. We were fine up until 30 yards from their goal. So the weather didn't stop us building out from the back. It didn't stop Walsh having a good game. It didn't stop Kelly being okay. It didn't stop the ball rolling to teammates. Like, the pitch looked solid. It looked hard, but it wasn't a bad pitch. It wasn't like the Tranmere pitch, which was boggy. It was a good pitch. Yeah, the wind was a bit bad, but that doesn't stop players dribbling at the opposition. It doesn't stop players passing and moving. It doesn't stop players running the channels. It doesn't stop players doing what they need to do. And Ched Evans had a really good game. Like, he terrorised our three centre-backs. It didn't stop him having a good game. It didn't stop. The weather wasn't the reason we didn't have any shots on target, or we only had one. That wasn't the issue yesterday. The issue was we got to the edge of their box and we ran out of ideas. And I like Michael Rose. I really like Michael Rose. Two things about Michael Rose that he's not. He's not Koeman, and he's not the man I want in the 85th minute to continually be on the edge of the opposition's box, being the man who has to make the attacking decisions. And you've got people going, why hasn't he played that pass? He's a League One centre-half, mate. He's not spotting that pass. If he spotted that pass, he wouldn't be at League One playing centre-half. He'd be in the Premier League playing centre-half, or he'd be in Championship playing central midfield. He's not that guy. And that's where we got to. We kept getting to the ball. It's like, oh, Michael Rose is 10 yards outside the area again. Wonder what he's going to do this time. Oh, he's given it to the opposition, or he's played a simple-sided 5-yard pass because he's a centre-back on the edge of their area. And there just wasn't enough going forward. And I was really surprised because I thought, oh, he's going to bring Hawula on just because he's a menace. He'll get the ball and he'll dribble at them. He'll try something different than just trying to cross the fucking ball into that big tall guy. He'll get the ball on the floor and he'll try. Oh no, we're not bringing Hawula on. Okay, O'Hare.
He used to play for him, by the way.
He was the last club he played for before he signed for us. Again, like he scored. You know, he's the old striker against former club. Do something different, and we didn't. My issue is for 20 minutes we didn't do anything different. In the second half, we came up with a plan. It didn't work, so we just tried the same plan, and it didn't work, and then it didn't work, and it didn't work. And then at the very last minute, you've got that, is it a penalty, isn't it a penalty? Well, at the time, it was a bit like, oh, he's gone down, but it's O'Hare, he goes down a lot. It's hard to say whether or not he's been fouled. You watch it again, you're like, that's definitely a penalty. And then you watch it with the sane eyes, and you go, well, actually, if it's anything, it's outside the area. Plus, he kicks Matty Godden's foot. Maybe that's what the ref.
He's getting a massive push in the back, didn't
he? Yeah, he did. But before that, his foot hits Godden's, and then you watch him, and then he's sort of stumbling, and then he gets a massive shove in the back. But it's one of those ones where, ultimately, it was a free kick outside the area that we might have scored from, we might not have scored from. But I'm not having that as being like the worst decision in the world and the reason we didn't win that game. We didn't win that game because we didn't play well enough up front. And that's the issue. And defensively, we're brilliant. We've kept, I think, 4 clean sheets on the bounce. Defensively, we're as solid as a rock. But we're not going to get up if we don't score goals. And we've been the better team in the 2 games, and I think we've had about 3 shots on target. And it's just, that's where we're at. And I love Biamu. As you look at his stats, he scored 9 league goals for us. And whatever we think of Matty Godden, both Biamu and Matty Godden are 28, 29, and this is the second season they've had at League One level. Maybe they're just average League One strikers, which is fine as long as we find a way, and it might be a system, it might be whatever. We've got to find a way, if we're not going to bring anyone else in, to get those 2 guys to get us the goals, to get us promoted. Because that's where we're at. We're in a fantastic position with, 5 points off top, 2 games in hand. That's amazing. But we need to kick on now. And that's we've got to get goals. Whether or not we sacrifice defensive solidity for more players forward, don't know, but we have to get goals.
I think just defend. Sorry, go on now.
Just very quickly, just defend Biamu on. You said it's his second season in League One. I think it's a bit tough to call this his second season, considering he's injured. But I get the point. I imagine people would hear that.
Yeah.
And think,
what I mean is, he's not an this is the highest. He's 28, 29. This is the highest level of football he's ever played at, and that's not a criticism. That his journey, as you said earlier, is amazing, but he's not a League One. He's not a proven League One striker. He's a guy who's playing in League One for, I say, because he played 4 times last season or 3 times, and He's only ever scored sort of 7 goals for us in the league, plus 2 in the playoffs. But we need to find a way of, like, when he plays, in my opinion, we're a better side because he gives us that focal point up front. But then we need to find ways of getting goals out of him and the players around him.
Any final thoughts?
It was cold.
Perfect. Right, let's throw over to Dom and then do some very quick listener questions. Yep. Hi Dom, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. It's always good to be on.
Right, time to dust off your quarterly Bristol Rovers preview for us, please.
Yeah, a Bristol Rovers preview for each segment of their shirt. So, so they are in a bit of turmoil at the moment, really. It's sort of been a series of how can I describe it? It's sort of just one thing after another seems to be piling up. So they lost their manager Graham Coughlin to Mansfield Town of League Two just before Christmas. They then replaced him with Ben Garner, who had been a coach at Crystal Palace and West Brom, but this is his first managerial role. And then over Christmas period, they just had a nightmare injury list where they basically only had about 11 or 12 players available, so didn't really have an opportunity to change things up. It was just clear there wasn't a lot of energy around place, and they're just going into games just hoping just to scrape something out of it and move on until they had a little bit more time to get things sorted in the transfer market and on the training pitch, and then haven't really had that opportunity yet, and it's been made worse by Garner having to deal with some issues at home. He took about a week or so off, but fortunately he's back at work now, which is good to hear. But there's a lot of pressure. Not only have they not won since he's taken over, but they haven't scored. They've scored 1 goal from open play in 11 games, and that goal was on Tuesday night against Bolton. It's just been a very difficult situation. You wonder just how much patience there might be left right now, where it's understandably been very difficult circumstances, but this has been a long run now where things just haven't been going right, and it's going to take a lot of patience from those in charge in someone who hasn't really proved himself as a manager in his own right to see things through. And yeah, if it goes on for like 3 or 4 more games, then there really is going to be pressure on him. And then with Friday's transfer deadline looming, got Jonson Clarke-Harris, who is pretty much the only good thing going about the squad at the moment. He's certainly just about the only one capable of putting the ball in the net. Even the few goals that Bristol Rovers have managed to score recently, he looks like he might be off to a championship club. Charlton seem to be in for him, along with quite a few others, apparently. So we could be facing a Clarke-Harris-less Bristol Rovers side, which obviously would be quite a boon if that were to happen. They just don't really even seem to have too many other forward options at the moment. Had 2 lone strikers who have been recalled, hadn't really made much of an impact, so it wasn't too much of a blow, but just very short numbers in terms of strikers. If they were to lose Clarke-Harris, and you imagine they would be getting a loan in quite late in the transfer window, so that's probably only going to weaken them a little bit more. In terms of the business they have done, they've brought in extra pace into the squad. Josh Ginnerly, who's in the category of players from Coventry who never played for Coventry. He's brought in also a guy from Derby County called Jaden Mitchell-Lawson. So I think the idea is they just want more pace inside further up, because it's been a squad that over a few years has been built to play quite a physical and defensive style of football. And well, the aim when appointing Garner was to try and evolve that style. And I suppose if they had a few more wins on the board, there would be that patience. But I think the best piece of business they've done this January is bringing in Jamal Blackman, on loan from Chelsea, who for quite a while has been quite a highly rated youth prospect. He's now 26, 27, He's had a few injuries to contend with, but he's a very good goalkeeper, very tall, commanding, good shot stopper. He's been brought in because they've had an injury to their first choice goalkeeper, and it's just been a case of just being able to source a high caliber replacement in there. So I think could be the main area of contention that we may have to deal with here. In terms of sort of what approach Garner has been trying to bring in, is trying to get them to play further up the pitch, which has led to a couple of hammerings just because they just don't have the pace in the side really anywhere until they brought in those couple of loan signings to actually put teams under pressure, under the press. So yeah, it's sort of a club where the energy is sapped out of the place over a quite short space of time, and if we're sort of serious about winning promotion here, we go there and we just impose ourselves on them and just ensure they don't get that, just get any sign of light in this game. So it's just one of those tests where it's against an opponent not in great form, where if you're approaching winning side, you win that with no problem. So yeah, it's a good opportunity. So we need to pick up 3 points. It's just whether we're aggressive enough, clinical enough to take it.
Any thoughts before I let you go on the Birmingham game?
I suppose with that, along with the Fleetwood game, it has kind of brought into light that there are quite impressive elements of this team in defence and midfield, but it's just really that lack of aggressiveness up front and presence. I know probably by this time in the pod there'll be another 20 minutes of discussion about what we're supposed to do in the attack. So I don't want to be a dead horse, but I think that's what's really underlying it, because it just felt like such an opportunity against Birmingham to put off a result against a half decent Championship side, and it's left it a little bit flat now, having drawn 0-0 on Tuesday night.
Hopefully we will finish it off in the return leg. Right, Dom, thank you very much, and I'll speak to you next week.
Okay, bye.
Okay, thanks, Dom. Right then, Paul, hit us with what the best of questions has got to show.
Right, friend of the show, Ellis Romaro, says, why isn't Alan getting more of a look in?
I just think he's happy with what he's got, isn't he, at the moment?
Yeah, I think that's right, isn't it? We've got a good bench, and there's a reason, because the people on the first team have been doing well as well. So I think it's a positive. I think if we need to bring him in, and obviously we've looked at Shipley, he's had a bad couple of games. That's kind of level up where actually we can't afford to keep playing, poor players who are playing poorly for too long, and they know that they're gonna be replaced. So it's a good thing. I think he just hasn't found the opportunity to bring him in yet.
Fine, cool. From Jojo Dojo. Jojo's Dojo. If the promotion push fails because of lack of a defendable striker, will that be the end of the Robbins project? It doesn't mean sort of get rid of Robbins. He just means, does he have only one season with this team?
No.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought so.
I'm not sure. I think even if we don't go up, I think we keep Morosi, Rose, McFadzean, Hyam, Dabo, Mason or McCallum. I think you probably keep Kelly, Biamu, Godden. I'm not sure they're going to get, even if we don't go up, I just don't see them getting taken off us. Does that make sense?
This feels like more of a project than last year's team did.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
100%,
Yeah.
You feel like if anything is that if we didn't go up this season, then we'd almost have like more of a chance of going up next season. So I'm going to have to say, Jojo's Dojo, that I disagree with your sentiment more than anything I've ever disagreed with in my entire life. Don't ever write to us again. That's a joke, of course. Write to us again.
Please.
Someone's got to, yeah.
All right, Bitchu 1990. This team or Mowbray's lot? which was the stronger first 11?
So I think this is quite a good question because it's probably, you could look at it one of two ways. What would you guys say?
I would
Paul, do you
say
want to go?
if you have this back, you have this, have the whole defensive unit, but I want Jacob Murphy, Adam Armstrong, and any of the other strikers we had in that year. Joe Cole.
Ryan Kent.
Yeah, maybe not Fortune or Marcus Tudgay. Yeah, or Henderson, or Stephen Hunt. What I meant is like the good ones, like Adam Armstrong, Joe Cole. So yeah, I'd have those, or any one of those three. I think if you put Jacob Murphy or Adam Armstrong in our team, I think we'd be top.
Can you imagine how ludicrously better we'd be with Jacob Murphy in the team? And as well, you could put Jacob Murphy pretty much anywhere. So I thought the best he played was when he played number 10 for us. I would put him, sort of roughly speaking, behind. I'd put him in instead of Westbrook, or play two up front and have him in the hole. It sort of doesn't really matter where he was on the pitch, but if he was in this team, it would just be a lot better, wouldn't it? I think.
From Chivsy 123.
Sorry, I want to know what Neil would say.
I think they're both really good teams in their own right. I don't think they're quite the same. I reckon if you, like you say, if you put that forward 4 or 5 in this team, we're winning the World Cup. That's how they're just really good. But I reckon both of them should have gone up, all that sort of stuff. Very good teams.
For me, the reason it's two things is roughly what you're saying there. Mowbray, I still think, needs taken out and shooting for having one of the most talented sets of players that he never turned really into a cohesive team properly. And Robbins has got a team of players who we've talked about often on here as being kind of 6.5, 7 out of 10 every week, and has turned them into a team that could win their games in hand and go top of the league. So one is a better set of players in inverted commas, but one is an actual team, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, would you swap it round? I'm not. That said, no, I was about to say there's not many players in the Mowbray team that would get in this one, but that's bollocks because I'd have Fleck, Vince Lowe, Jack Stevens, Ben Turner.
The team.
But I would like them to play like a team like this one does.
Talking about playoffs then, or having points in front. 24 Crossfire asks, I've looked at the table 50 times thinking we win those 2 games now and we go top of the league. Would you swap with Rotherham to have points in the bag but possibly get knocked off top spot?
Yeah, when they're 5 points clear of us, we've got 2 games in hand, but it's much harder to win 2 games than it is to already have 5 points.
Yeah. And the games in hand thing's it's a bit of a myth in a way where you don't play those 2 games in hand to match up with them. Over the course of like the next few months, we'll have 1 game in hand. We'll have a game. It doesn't. You don't just plonk 6. I mean, if it works out that we play 2 games and we'll play 1 and then we lose one of them, so you're in a worse position. So at the moment it looks great, and I think you would. I like the look of it, and I think we're still strong, but I do. Sometimes the games in hand thing's a little bit not overrated, but we put so much thought into it, saying, this is all going to go right. But really, I mean, it's not 2 games in hand just yet. I mean, that's going to flux over the next few weeks, I think.
It's also 2 games less that Rotherham have got to fit into their schedule. And if you look, we're playing Saturday, Tuesday, I think, for the next next few weeks, and that's rough.
That's why I want the the Champions League group stage got rid of, because Cov are playing too many games.
I think so, yeah. Let's get a winter break.
Yeah, I think we deserve a winter break. You're only allowed to answer one of the 2 options. From Sharper Cov, is our lack of goals down to the strikers or poor service? You've got to say strikers or service. Joey?
Well, no.
I'm not getting drawn on this. I got crucified last week. I'm not talking. I don't think it is a lack of goals, but don't get started on it. Honestly, I think there's more to it. But
I think it's more complex than that, isn't it? I think it's a bit of both. Paul, what I've gone for the sake of completion of people not answering it, how would you not answer it?
I'd buy a striker, but I've said that for fucking weeks. Yeah. My opinion hasn't changed. I'd still buy a striker. I'd try a different striker. As I said, I'd like to have seen Hawula just given 5 minutes yesterday just to see if his weird, wonderful ways of being the like last season's top scorer with 12. Just the fact that he doesn't get anywhere near the team, I find absolute. And I'm not saying he's any good. Before anyone says that, I don't think he's better than anything we've got. It's just the fact that I would love to see him just play for just a different option. He's just different from Godden, Bakayoko, and Biamu. He dribbles and he runs at people with pace, and I think it's just a different option. Would have made it last night for me. It would have just been a different. When he's on the bench, you've watched it, ain't working. Give him a go. He might still be shit, and I might still want to sell him, but at least I feel like he's there for a reason.
Less than 12 months ago, he was our best attacker.
Well, no, less than 12 months ago, Bright was our best attacker, but he worked really well with Bright. And I think that's the thing. I'd like to see what he could do with someone else in this formation, whether or not his direct running would help the team play further forward. I don't know. But I just think if you either sell him or give him a chance. And in the last 3 months, he hasn't been sold and he hasn't been given a chance. It's just
yet.
Yes, but as I said, he was last season. He got 12 goals. I mean, he's got more goals last season than Biamu's got in his COV career.
Paul, that's the standard punishment for missing a penalty. You're punished and banished for 3 months. That is the Robins way. I'd say that's it's a bit extreme, isn't it? I mean, I was calling for him not to stop playing him, to stop playing him. And you sort of think, well, I didn't mean that much, mate. I mean, he's not that bad. I mean, he's allowed to play again. Oh, God, I feel bad now. Not related at all, apart from the fact it's about COV. But have you ever in your life heard anybody pronounce Biamu's name as Biamo?
No. Because
the guy behind me the other day kept saying it. And I'm like, you've either got to be really confident or really daft to think that, like, I'm going to get away with calling it. But it's like nobody around you is calling him Biamo. So why would you continue with that line of pronunciation? I don't know.
Paul, did you know that you were stood so close to Neil?
I had one.
Oh, he's gone. Have I offended you? Hello, Paul.
No, sorry.
There you go.
I got mocked for you lot for calling Dabo, and there's only 4 letters in that man's name. And yesterday I heard a completely different way of pronouncing it. Like, I can't even remember what it was. It was just so bizarre. And it was like, we talking about the same guy. That's just weird.
Taboo.
Like, very quickly, because we've sort of, got better things to be doing with our lives, like going to sleep.
Sorry.
I don't know if I asked this question. Shivsy123, how big a role will Bakayoko and Wooler have in our running? I can see both of them at some point starting and potentially scoring an absolute massive goal on the road to playoffs and automatics. And then this is followed up very quickly by Ludford David, who just replied, I would sell both players and get another striker.
Both tweets there written by Paul Knowles.
So you with Martin Coleman, who thinks that they're both going to play an important role, or you with David Ludford, who thinks we should sell both of them and bring someone else in?
Yeah, I'd sell both of them.
I don't think they're going anywhere. I think they'll do something between now and the end. I don't think they'll be key to it, but I've said earlier, the squad that we've got is everybody's important, and it's really important that we have the options. It's whether we use them, I guess, to your point, really. It's whether we actually if Robbins hasn't completely dismissed Tarula, or if he's willing to give him another bit of a go.
The only club that I could see signing either or both of them is Barnsley, just because.
Of course. $1 million, please. Cha-ching!
All right, so we've got. This isn't a question that was on the Twitter thing, but it's my question to you two. We've obviously got 2 days left before the transfer window. Are we expecting any signings at all?
No. I think weren't they fairly clear in the summer that he overspent in the summer? I think he was.
Yeah.
I think
he's given the sense. Yeah.
I think that he went quite significantly over budget, presumably with a bit of a promise that he would trim down in January and not bring anyone in. Because I seem to remember after we'd brought Walsh in, he was like, "Really, that has to be it," because we had to write an IOU for that particular one, and we haven't really got anything left at all. I think he was fairly clear about that, and in a way that I sort of felt, well, yeah, I don't expect to see anything. I also don't think we need anyone, do we? I know that we could argue about a striker, but we have got, 4 strikers at the club. Outside of people moving out in the very, very near future, which I'd sort of like to see happen, but I don't think will happen. We don't need anyone. We want someone, but that's two different things, isn't it?
Based on what he said last night as well in his interview, it seems like his more pressing concern at the moment is just the McCallum thing. It's just it seemed he gave out a bit of a challenge to the board, whoever it is making decisions. Like, if we're going to sell him, we need a lot more money for it. But when they asked the question, any business he was going, he didn't talk about coming in. He was all about people going out.
Imagine if he gets sold. I think we said this last week. Imagine if they get more for McCallum than they do for Bayliss.
I wouldn't.
But who? Sorry, who? I suppose what I'm confused by is almost who goes out. I mean, we've got our first choice goalkeeper's in goal. The reserve goalkeeper, I'm assuming, is basically on pittance. And then you've got Dabo, and the other right back is Pask.
Whoa.
Yeah. But other than that, and then you've got our three centre backs play, and then after that you've got Children, who I'm assuming are on fuck all, and then you've got McCallum and Mason, which is fine because we're all expecting McCallum to go for about 15 million, and then Mason just comes in. But then we don't have a reserve left back then. I mean, unless Pask is sort of John O'Shea type, can play anywhere. Which I really hope he does, because that'd be quality. It ends up.
I guess it's Burrows, isn't it? But he's a bit young.
Yeah, Rose is a sort of although the idea of him playing left wing back terrifies me.
Sorry, I meant Burrows. You might have cut out the first syllable.
Oh, sorry. Who did you say?
Jack Burrows.
Oh, right. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
And then midfield, you've got Kelly and Walsh, but there's no other defence midfield. I mean, again, you've got Josh Eccles, who's a child. But there's no one out, that's them three. Your attacking ones where you've got four, but they're Walsh and O'Hara obviously on loan, and then you've got Allen and Shipley who are ours. But other than that, so that's no one to go out. And then
I just track that, by the way. So I've just said Jack Burrows left back, and I'm not entirely sure I'm thinking of the right player. We've got a left back somewhere.
I'm sure there'll be a left back somewhere in the squad. And then
you should hold me up on it. If I say stuff like that, tell me off. Because I don't know why I've said he's left back. I'm not sure who he is.
It was Junior Brown was number 3, wasn't it? But then he's
but he's out. He's much gone, hasn't he? And so basically, there's no spare player in any of that. Then you've got Jody Jones, who obviously isn't really anywhere at. We don't really know where he's at. You've got Castanier, who is definitely someone you want to get rid of, but who the hell's buying Castanier? I mean, who the hell did we buy Castanier? Not anyone else. And then you've got your 4 strikers, which I think we all agree that probably could be trimmed down, but you'd want to replace, I don't think you'd want to be down to 3 strikers, would you? You'd want to, if you got rid of one of those, you want to replace them. So I'm not sure where the player to go out would be, unless I've missed someone clearly obvious who you're like, well, you haven't spoken about this guy, and obviously we're going rid of him because he's shit.
Based on how marginalised he's been and the fact that we seem to be able to cope with playing one up front, you'd imagine it would be Hawula being based on surplus to requirements, and McCallum based on being, desirable, for want of a better way of putting it.
I think that's quite a good way of ending the podcast with the word desirable.
There you go. Any final thoughts to bring us to a close?
No.
Right. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Cheers, mate.
We'll be back next week. Thanks for listening. Bye.